Yesterday, Paul Ryan unveiled the quote-unquote GOP anti-poverty plan, and he did it in Southeast Washington, D.C. Now, before we even get to the plan, why is it that all of these anti-poverty plans are always unveiled in black communities? They act like there's no such thing as a poor white community, okay? Same way they talk about drugs, and there's always black people that are quote-unquote the face of drugs, but now there's a drug epidemic all across the country as far as heroin is concerned, and you just go up to New Hampshire, and it's very evident, even with that racist mayor that they got up in one of those towns. That's all they talk about are drugs. But anytime they want to put any issue regarding drugs on TV, it's always a black person that happens to be the face of drugs, just like it's a black person that's the face of poverty and crime. All right, anyway, here's a segment regarding Paul Ryan's anti-poverty plan.
Folks, Speaker Paul Ryan and House Republicans are looking for ways to combat poverty in America. They unveiled a plan yesterday in Southeast D.C. at a drug rehab facility. The new anti-poverty plan, called A Better Way, is focused on reforming federal welfare programs. The plan seeks to expand work requirements for those receiving federal benefits, give state and local jurisdictions a greater role in administering those benefits, better measure the results of federal programs for the poor, crack down on waste, fraud, and abuse. But the question is this a new plan or the same GOP proposals repackaged with a different approach? Here's Paul Ryan yesterday speaking at that announcement.
This is what the plan that we're unveiling today does. It rests on 5 principles. Number 1, reward work. Number 2, tailor benefits to people's specific needs. Number 3, demand results. Hold each other accountable. Number 4, improve skills and schools. Number 5, help people save and plan for their future so that people have their own horizon that they're shooting for. This is how you fight poverty. This is how you create opportunity. I'm going to do that to you if you don't mind. This is how you help people move onward and upward. And this is just one.
All right, folks.
All right, if you notice, the lady that was standing on the right side of the screen was Pastor Shirley Holloway, who's a guest of Roland Martin in this segment.
Here to discuss the anti-poverty plan, founder of House of Help, City of Hope, Bishop Shirley Holloway, who was there yesterday with Paul Ryan, and of course we're still joined by Sir Michael Singleton, Bob Woodson, as Drew Elons, as well as A. Scott Bolden. Bishop, I'll start with you. First of all, Speaker Ryan has previously unveiled poverty plans that did not get much traction even in his own party. Congressman Jim Clyburn has something called the Clyburn Amendment, where he wants 10% of all federal funds go to counties where 20% or more of the people live below the poverty line for at least 30 years. Of the 400 plus counties that qualify, 2/3 of them are in Republican congressional districts. Yet he hasn't been able to get Republicans in the House to go along with the idea. Do you believe that even with unveiling of the plan, the Republicans are serious about the issue of poverty in America?
Good morning to you. I believe so, and I believe that Paul came to see me because it's nothing more embarrassing than spending money that doesn't work right. And he came to me to find out what works, what will help the neighborhood. And so I went to the Hill 2 years ago, but when we talked and Bob and I got together, I said, Paul, come on down. He's come before and talked to the people, but yesterday, the chairman of Ways and Means, the chairman of Budget, all the people who sit down and make the policies were there. And we talked to them and we asked hard questions. Now that was closed door, but when the plan was revealed to me and I looked at it, things can look cute on paper, but what is the bottom line for our people? What is that going to do?
Bob, when criminal justice reform was unveiled on Capitol Hill, you had bipartisan support. It's stalled right now. You have Senator Tom Cotton, who says that we're not putting enough folks in jail. You have the chair, Goodlatte, of the House Judiciary Committee, who basically says, look, we're not moving on that. And so how do Republicans make the case that we can actually get this done? They control the House, they control the Senate. You would think that it could actually work.
Well, 4 years ago, Paul Ryan approached me and I took him on a listening tour. Every month for 4 years, we have gone to high crime, drug infested neighborhoods where he had a chance to spend a day with people who are solving those problems internally. He's gone to probably more high crime, low income black neighborhoods than any member of the Black Caucus. The very fact that the president at the State of the Union address.
Maxine might disagree with that, but go ahead.
Well,
All right, see, now Bob Woodson has become a friend of Paul Ryan, and he done drunk the Paul Ryan Kool-Aid. So anything Paul Ryan does is A-okay with him. And you're going to see that during this particular clip where he starts to argue with the woman seated to his left regarding Paul Ryan calling poor people takers.
we may disagree, but a lot of black elected officials and others don't feel the need to come in and address these kinds of problems. I didn't hear any of the Democratic candidates talking about poverty.
Well, apparently he wasn't listening to Bernie Sanders, because that's all Bernie Sanders was talking about was poverty. Just like I said, he's drunk the Republican Kool-Aid, and the Republicans apparently can't do any wrong, and the Democrats can't do anything right.
Paul is one of the only political figures that has made anti-poverty an agenda item.
But I can tell you right now, I saw all of the debates. To be perfectly honest, I heard a hell of a lot more about poverty on the Democratic side than I heard from any Republican candidates.
Heard where? I haven't, but
Well, and he caught himself. He was going to say, where? I haven't heard anything. That's because either you weren't watching the debates or you weren't paying attention. So he caught himself and lateraled over.
the point is what Paul Ryan has done. He has listened to us. We are solution oriented.
Yes.
We were able to reduce gang violence in Southeast Washington when there were 58 murders in the 5 square block area in 2 years. We took that down to 0. That's what Paul had a chance to meet people like Bishop Holloway that are in the trenches solving problems internally, but they are ignored by both the left and the right.
True.
You know, for me, I'm thinking about the devil is in the detail. So when I look through some of the poverty plan, when they start talking about removing benefits from people who cannot acquire 20 hours of work. So then when you start looking at that, what does that mean, and how are you going to actually implement that, and what does that mean as far as the type of work, et cetera? When you start talking about removing funding from Head Start, things like that that actually help families move forward, when you start reducing tax credits, things of those nature, we need to figure out, you know, specifically how it's going to actually work, and will it actually be more benefit, or is it just more talk? And when you have those high brush talks of, you know, we're going to put people back to work, I want to understand the details. And while we're sitting here, I just don't believe the rest of his party on that he is going to actually support and put that through.
Shamichael, real quick. Shamichael, stop.
I mean, I think this is a start. You know, I worked for Governor Romney in 2012 when he ran for president, and most of my time was spent with Congressman Ryan, and I do know that this is something that he indeed does care about. I know that for a fact. I do think that with any policy initiative, there are always going to be things that can be tweaked, that you can debate about and figure out ways to make them work. But I think this is a start, and it is my hope that as Speaker, he will be able to get the rest of the party to say, hey, look, guys, this is something we have to finally tackle.
That's the real key for me, and that is, can Ryan even get his own part? Because here's the deal. Here's the deal. This is what we know. Even under Boehner, they have a philosophy of, if we can't get at least 218 votes on the Republican side, we're not going to bring anything forward, even though you might have folks on the Democratic side who might go along with it. He has to get another 217 votes on his side alone. Go ahead.
And this is the politics of poor people. I think Ryan has a great idea. He's great on this issue, but the politics of poor people is difficult. And convincing a Republican leadership or Republicans to vote 218 to put money behind this, whether it's entrepreneurship, job training, whatever you can to uplift people in poverty, that's just going to be difficult.
See, and also it's not going to fly because whatever amount of money he wants to put into this thing, your hardcore Tea Party guys are going to be screaming, well, where's the money going to come from? And we need to take money from someplace else in order to fund this. That is their standard comeback anytime money's proposed for something that they don't like.
Bob,
It was
go ahead.
under Jack Kemp. When Jack Kemp took on the issue of public housing, resident management, and ownership, everybody said, there's no votes there. Why do you care? Jack Kemp persuaded the Republican Party to make it a part of their platform, and we brought together
One second.
See, and that's the problem. This brother is living in the past. When Jack Kemp was in Congress, things were a lot more civil. Now everything basically is polarized. So, brother, this ain't the 1960s, 70s, or 80s. This is 2016, and these Republicans are a completely different crowd. So if Jack Kemp were in the Senate today, he would be sitting just as powerless as Paul Ryan is going to show to be.
Go ahead, Bob. Hold on 1 second, Bob. Go ahead. And I'm going to go to Bishop. Go ahead. Bob, finish.
Okay, Jack Kemp reached out to Walter Fontre. He said, Bob, if it's a Republican initiative, it's dead on arrival. Get me one Democrat, I'll get you 100 Republicans. I recruited Walter Fontre. They co-sponsored it. You have Bill Armstrong, conservative Republican in the Senate, getting together with Alan Dixon, liberal senator from Illinois. And they came together and it passed 93-0. Ronald Reagan signed resident management ownership of public housing into federal law, flanked by myself and 6 resident leaders. That leadership came from the Republicans. If it did then, it can happen again. And Paul Ryan is trying to build on that Kemp legacy and push the Republican Party to do exactly what they did back in the 80s.
That was then, this is now, and that is not going to work because there is no way that they were going to allow anything that has less than 218 Republican votes in a Republican-controlled House to even see the light of day. I doubt that it would even pass through the budget committee.
Here's the deal, Bishop. And Bob talked about Ryan going to these to inner city neighborhoods, talking where largely African Americans. But white folks are broke.
Right.
So the question I have is, is Paul Ryan going to go sell this to those white conservative voters in Mississippi and Alabama who often are voting against their own economic interests? You have broke white folks in North Carolina right now ticked off that the Republican governor won't do Medicaid expansion and the rural hospitals are closing. You've got South Carolina turning down some $10 billion. So to me, the biggest challenge for Speaker Ryan ain't black folks. It's going to be those broke white folks on the
biggest challenge for Paul Ryan is people, period. And that's what we talked about yesterday. We talked about urban and rural poverty, not just black poverty, not white poverty, poverty, period. And we talked about policy, programs, and people, not politics and popularity. And that's the problem where we are now. We're so caught up in Trump and his foolishness that we're missing the policies. We're missing the programs. We're missing the people. And I had an opportunity to sit down and say, you know, have you looked at the plan? Look at the plan. Then you can pull it apart and say, this works, that doesn't work, we can tweak that. He's willing to listen and he's willing to talk.
So here's my question. No. So here's my question.
Sure.
So my question is, because you talked about Trump and his foolishness, he's a party nominee.
Yes.
So the question is Trump going to have a real discussion about poverty as opposed to just sort of here it is?
And this is what Paul is putting in his face, and that's why Paul denounced his comments. Look, you know, you drive. You don't like all drivers, but that doesn't stop you from driving. We got to deal with Trump. And what the worst thing we can do?
But Trump driving around, I'm gonna get out the hell out of the way.
The police and we report him. He's like a small child having a tantrum, and we're playing to his tantrum. We need to ignore him and.
Wait a minute. First she said we got to deal with Trump. Now she's saying we got to ignore Trump. Are we supposed to ignore Trump until we're sitting in change and then said, I guess I better not ignore him now? This lady's not making any sense.
Stick with the policies. Okay, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? The Better Way plan gives a vision. No other candidate is giving a vision.
That's not true. Bernie Sanders has a vision which he has enunciated multiple times. So she's not paying attention to what's going on either.
about poverty. They're talking to us like we're a third world country, but they're not giving us a vision. And when there's no vision, the people perish. That's why
I think Senator Sanders might disagree in terms of a vision when it comes to poverty. Drew, real quick.
It's going to be quick. So I think, it's a little disingenuous to say that when we talk about what Paul Ryan has been doing, his thought process on what poor people are, his thought processes are that we are, or poor people are takers. So yes, he has said it, and he's come back and repealed what he said.
Okay, and she's right. He has said that poor people are takers, and then he basically later on walked it back and apologized for making a comment. But yeah, he did say it. And that gentleman on her right is going to argue with her about it, but she is 100% right. And then even he's going to end up having to say that he turned around and apologized for it, if you can hear it on the clip.
He's come back and said that.
You understand the context?
One second. One second.
Out of your mouth comes your heart. Out of your heart comes your heart.
Sure, Michael. We are moving on.
Look, I'm not going to allow anyone to say that because, again, I worked for let me finish. I worked for the speaker, and the speaker is a good man, and I know his heart, and I've traveled with this guy, and I know the things that he cares about. It's easy to perceive things and formulate an opinion when you don't really know the facts about something. Through experience, then you can say, you know what, I was wrong. And because I'm wrong, I'm going to put action behind that to show that I now recognize something that I didn't recognize before. That is what he is doing.
Okay,
that is what he is doing.
Very simple. He unveiled yesterday. Now the question is, just like when criminal justice reform was unveiled, the question is, can this speaker get his own party behind it? That's going to be the biggest challenge for him.
That's why they happens back in a year.
No. It ain't going to be a year. It's going to be 3 months.
Okay.
What has been here? They want to change.
I understand that, but I also know that Freedom Caucus, they ran Boehner out. So Bishop, you need to go lay hands on them then, because they didn't get it in a while. I got it.
All right, so we're going to see, but you can see a couple of people on that panel and drunk the Paul Ryan Kool-Aid. So as far as their opinions are concerned, I would say that they are a little bit biased in his behalf. But really, I myself want to take a look at that program that he's outlining. I can already see some issues, but I'm going to hold a video in abeyance until after I read the entire program, digest it, and analyze it.